Hello and welcome to Impact Podcast. This is your host, Christian. I'm along with my co-host today, Darren and Amani. We're happy to be back on here for another season of Watch, Warn, Witness. This has been a pretty good season. We went out into our communities. We've done a lot of things. And I feel like it's really connected with a lot of people. So how do y'all feel about this season? What's y'all's favorite part or aspect from this season?
Maybe, oh, well, this wasn't broadcasted, but the discussion panel talk
Yeah.
was definitely my favorite.
Yeah, last week I believe we had basically an off-air podcast where it was like a roundtable, and we discussed many different topics surrounding isolation, how we could be watchful in our communities, how we can watch out for each other spiritually, and basically things such as that. And we got really good interaction. We talked for about 2 hours with
Yeah, we were
everybody,
talking.
and it went very well. I want to do something like that again, but that really brought us to have these questions and this topic for this episode because what kept on coming around was isolation, and many times people isolate themselves to self-protect. They isolate because they don't want to hear the truth. They isolate because sometimes God puts you into isolation. Other times, you put yourself there. And isolation could be good if you're trying to figure out who your identity is in Christ or who you are, what you want to do. But also, it's not good if you're using isolation as a tactic to only hear your own thoughts, to block out other people's opinions when it comes down to accountability. Some people isolate because they don't want accountability and because they only want to do what they want to do and they don't want to hear the voice of reason. When you get to the point in your life when you don't want to hear anything good, you don't want to hear anything that's, some people, they go away from the church and they isolate and say, I don't do church, I just follow Jesus, I don't do religion. And I don't
That's
completely.
their favorite.
Yeah, that's different. They was like we're supposed to be followers of Christ, not just people that practice like religion come to church. But God's model is for us to gather together in the church. Church was created by God. That's His way of doing things. So when you say you don't feel like you have to gather together with like-minded believers, you're automatically going against the Word of God. And so isolation. This episode, I'm gonna let you ask the first question because it's still loading on my end.
Okay.
But isolation is something that could be good because God isolates, and it could be bad because you can isolate yourself. So,
Before I ask the first, can I ask y'all a question? Because I kind of want y'all opinion on it. There was somebody that asked me like some time ago. They were like I get church, you know what I mean? Like I understand what you're saying, but they were like, what if like we just gather at somebody's house and we read the Bible together? You know what I mean? They were like, isn't that like church? And I was like, because he was like basically just saying that you're gathering together in like the name of the Lord. And I'm like, you are gathering, but I was trying to get them to understand like people just gathering together is that's cool to study the Bible because you should study the Bible, but there should be like there comes a time where you're gonna need somebody that's a teacher. You know what I mean? And I was trying to get them to understand that, but I don't. They were really really young, so I don't know if they understood.
Yeah, you have to go. You need a leader first and foremost, an ordained leader. You can't just, what's the word? Be a gorilla out here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
God always uses a man of God. I don't know where some of us get away from that and think like, oh, I can hear God on my own. Like you can, but you're not gonna hear everything from God on your own. God sent Moses. God sent David. God sent the
All the
apostles,
all
the
the
prophets. He sent them for a reason. Why didn't he just go straight to whoever? No, he sent Samuel to do it. He could have went straight. You know what I'm saying? Even David, a man after God's own heart, when he sinned, had to send somebody to tell him. And this is a man after God's own heart. You know what I'm saying? Like Moses, even the people got together and was like, oh, why does God only speak to you? And then he ended up, showing itself, and it was like too much, and it was like,
And they
no,
were-
just
never mind,
go
you
back.
just
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
him then.
So you need a man of God, an ordained man of God, not just some random dude who, you know what I'm saying?
And I feel like a lot of people, you got to look at everything in life, not just spiritually, because some people just don't like structure. They don't like following anything. You know, they always feel controlled or whether. But at some point in life, you got to fall within structure. God intends for us to have some type of structure or some type of guideline, some type of leadership, some type, yeah. If God's intent for us was to just freelance and just hear from him directly without leadership or a set amount of rules or anything, he wouldn't have made the Bible. Because the Bible, if you read the Bible, it's structured. It tells us how to worship. It tells us how to live. It tells us how to act. It tells us how to sacrifice and fast and how to be a follower of Christ. Ultimately, when you come to a church, we surround the whole experience around the Bible. So when you're doing it on your own, it can be, but that's why it's good to assemble yourselves together, because some things I might understand and you might not fully get it. And it's even times in my past where it's been people in the church where I thought about a perspective, and that perspective may not have been relatable to everybody, or I may get stuck in my own ways. That's why it's good to be around other people, because when you're your own person, you're only hearing your voice. A lot of times you can't hear God's voice, because a lot of people be like, why is God not answering prayers? Why is he not listening to me when I pray or whatever? It's because you got to be quiet, and you got to hear another voice other than yours. And when people don't want to come to church, they want to gather with other believers. And a lot of times that can be a sign of they don't want to hear anybody's voice but theirs. And it leads people to be, it's like self-idolatry. They're idolizing their own opinions. They are rejecting any opinion that's not like theirs or anything that might not come out pretty. Because it's times in the church where some things that you do, people might have to rebuke. Or they might have to say something that you don't agree with. But at the same time, you have to learn from those things, and you can't just take it personally. You'll never grow if nobody can't ever tell you some things that you're doing wrong. So,
If they're being isolated.
yeah, they're isolating. Like some people, for example, even outside of church, they're isolating, they get away from their parents. And when that happens, not saying some people need to isolate from their parents, because some parents are terrible. But otherwise, like for people that have good people in their life, and the parents always loved, gave to them all these type of things, then they go away, is because they don't want to hear what's right, per se. So a lot of times, spiritually, people, they isolate away from the church and from spiritual leadership because they don't want to hear what's right. In our minds, we already basically know right from wrong. But it's a point in life where, you don't like hearing it. You know what I'm saying? So that's my little tidbit on it. But I just want to get to this first question, because this is going to be like a 20-minute episode. So here it is. It says, when you go through seasons of isolation, what do you think God is trying to watch over, warn you about, or prepare you to witness to later?
I think it depends on the person. You know what I mean? In the circumstances, like where you are in Christ. Because this is how I see like us as believers. Nobody's like ahead of anybody or whatever the case. You know what I mean? We're all trying to get to heaven. So if one person might be over here and the Lord is trying to grow them in their faith in a certain area. Somebody else over here, he's trying to just get them to understand, hey, church is important. You know what I mean? So he might isolate you, or he might, and isolation doesn't necessarily mean all the time that you are alone or whatever the case. It may just be like you're in a room and you may feel a little bit separate or distant from what's going on around you because he wants your attention. So I just feel like it depends on your situation, because, and it with the part about later, like preparing you for later, for the person that he's trying to increase their faith in a certain area, he may be trying to prepare them to tell somebody else, like, hey, you can believe in me. I once was this type of person, or the Lord helped me in this area. He increased my faith and he helped me to be obedient. Now I believe you can do it too. And then for the person that is like going back and forth, confused about if they should go to church. Now they're in church and they're serving. They can go and tell somebody, hey, you come on, young person, or come on, older person, whatever the case. You could come to church. Here's the benefits. You know what I mean? So just depends.
And for me, God isolated me at a very young age. So it started off as a point of me thinking like I was alone, depression and all that stuff. But really, God put me in a position to where he let it be known, like you can't, like early, you can't depend on nobody but me. You know, not saying that you don't, you know, you have your parents, and I'm not saying that, but on an everlasting point, like your parents can only help you so much. Like you might make me feel good for a while, but when I'm alone again and that feeling coming back, nobody could talk to me and make me feel better. But as I got older and I look back now, I totally understand why I was isolated. I could just never fit in, none of that stuff. Like I tried to fit in, and I look back, it's like it's not even as if I was doing nothing wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I just couldn't fit in. Like, and it got me to the point where I would get myself in trouble trying to be a part. You know what I'm saying? But then when I got to that point where I kind of embraced isolation, like, I completely grew, man. And when I look back, like even to this day, I can look back to people that's doing the same thing we was doing like 10 years ago, man. The same stuff. You know what I mean?
No, that's good. That's good.
What both of y'all said, because ultimately, like in isolation, if you look at many biblical stories, God will isolate you, or maybe some things in your life might go differently. Like, let's say we're looking at the book of Job. There was a point in time where he was so isolated, his family was taken. His friends basically was rejecting him. His wife, even his wife, came up to him and said,
Oh, yeah.
curse your God and die. But through that, we look at that story, we look at that time, and sometimes God will isolate you to recenter you. You know what I'm saying? He'll recenter you to a point where you only rely on him. We was at a Bible study the other week, and some people won't really hear from God, or they won't come back to God unless God is their last option, like where they have to rely on God, or else if God don't do it, it just won't get done. So a lot of times God will isolate you so you can know he's the only source that you can rely on, even though, you know, it's other people that's reliable people, but at the end of the day, God is some things God can only do. And we could be a witness, because when we come out of those seasons, he'll give us double, or he'll bless us in a way that only came from him. He'll heal people, he'll do all these things that's unheard of or unseen. And that way, we can be a witness to someone else. So that's what I said, but y'all basically did a good job with answering that question.
I mean, I'm not gonna add anything. You want me to ask the last question, or is this the last? Okay. How do you tell the difference between God isolating you for protection versus isolating you for correction or growth?
I would say, you know, because you gotta, like, when you get close to God, or when you know people, you know which ones for, sometimes God remove people from your life because they're not good for your life. Other times, he might remove people from your life because you can't handle it at that point in time. I'm not saying they're bad for you, but to say, like, basically you can't keep him centered because you're too busy worried about their friends or whatever. So it's been times where, let's say a friend, it's like a good friend. Y'all just go out to Top Golf. Y'all just hang out all the time on the weekends. Y'all not really doing anything sins. You're just hanging out. You know what I'm saying? But you kind of forget your relationship with Christ. And you kind of stop, your prayer life gets kind of faded. Y'all, this is not a bad friend. They don't tell you to do anything bad. Y'all even go to church and all that type of stuff. But you're not really focused on God anymore. You're focused on the friendship. sometimes God will allow you to isolate in seasons like that. Let's say the friend goes off to college or they go and get a job somewhere else for a certain amount of time. And now you feel alone because that was your best friend. But sometimes God would do that to isolate you so he can speak to you again, so he can recenter you. But for the other situation where it's for protection, let's say the same friend or a different friend is always leading you to sin. They're always trying to say you don't have to go to church. They're always trying to speak against you spiritually. You feel like you're giving to them and they're not giving back. And it's a one-sided friendship. And you're pouring so much into that friendship that you don't pour into your spiritual life anymore. Then God will remove that from your life in order to protect you. You know what I'm saying? So he'll protect you from those things. And those are really the different type of things. And sometimes even with growth, you can only grow in seasons where you're isolated. Like Darren was saying, it's times in your life where let's say these people weren't even bad people, but you're trying to move to a different standpoint, you're a different level, you have to isolate and you have to seek God for yourself. Because I'm not going to get to heaven and be like, you know how you get a job? Let's say you get a job and your mom or your dad works there. When you get to heaven, that's not going to work where they get a certain amount because, they referred you. Yeah, it's not going to be no referral. I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, God, I got this because my mom got me here. So now my mom gets bonus points in heaven. That's not how God works. You got to seek God for yourself. And when he isolates you, that's the moment where when you get to heaven, he's not going to say, what did Bishop Kennedy tell you? What did First Lady Kennedy tell you? And that would get you in. Now, I believe it might be some aspects of, okay, this person influenced you in that, and that would be a blessing to them. But what I will be judged on is what did I do when he isolated me and I had to depend only on him. So that's what I have to really add to that.
I know, like, to put an experience on it, I already told y'all about this before, but like even getting my undergrad, everything was so easy. Not easy. It was like, it was good until the end when it was time for me to like apply everything and whatnot, and I was in the schools. And then I'm thinking, like, this is sweet. My professor, she set me up with one of the best schools in Gwinnett, and the supervising teacher at that school, she literally gave me the lesson plans. So I'm thinking, imagine you're in school, you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is great. And then wherever you go out into the field, they're giving you the stuff you need. So I'm like, I got the lesson plans. All I got to do is read these off. And then everything switched. My professor was like, you don't know the information the way you should. Where are your own lesson plans? I'm like, I was literally told. I was given these lesson plans to teach in this particular way. But anyway, I had to be isolated during that time because I had to go back. They wanted me to repeat like a lot of classes, but I was like, no. I had to fight or whatever during that time, but I still had to like stay in school longer than I already was. And during that time, I realized I was by myself. Like my cohort, all the people that was in the program with me were no longer there. All the group me's, all of the group chats, all the things, the meetings we would have to study together, all those people were gone. It was just me and the Lord. And during that time, he prepared me to like be a better educator, you know what I mean? And he also prepared me to depend on him and to not depend on other people or, so it helped with my faith in him. And now I can say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, the Lord will be able to help you in these times when it's difficult. So I feel like during that time, he isolated me for kind of both, to grow me and to protect me from like what would have been. Because if I would have stayed with those educators, those teachers that were trying to prepare me, they wouldn't have taught me. They just gave me the stuff and then was like, okay, you figure it out, basically. So I wouldn't have been learning the way I needed to. Yeah.
Really good. That was a really good little testimony. Yeah. So, but I agree. Sometimes you got to isolate and do all those things. I don't know if there's something prosperous to work out for you. You have anything to add before we get ready to get out of here?
No, we can wrap it up, man.
We can wrap it up? Okay, well, thank y'all for this episode. I'm sorry we had to get through it so quick, but we can actually cover this another episode, too, this season, because it's a really broad topic, and we can cover both sides, like the good parts of isolation and bad parts of isolation. Just let us know, and we can do that. So with that being said, make sure you like, tab, subscribe to this channel, turn on post notifications. You can follow us on Impact Podcast Show on Instagram, Impact Podcast Show. We'll be happy to for that follow. Make sure you follow me at Instagram at Christian Kennedy. Christian Kennedy. You can
_Monty on IG.
Naraya.tv, I believe. I really don't remember.
Naraya.tv.
I believe so. Yeah. On Instagram.
Yeah. Exactly. See, they forgot their own
I'm
tags.
not just giving people out my Instagram for real in real life.
But and then you can also follow Rockstone Church on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. All social medias will be there, and we'll have great content out for you. I'm saying this is a good podcast. It's a great crew that we got here, and we just want to impact the future by pointing to the cross. So make sure that y'all do all those things. And yeah, let's get out of here, y'all.